Hey y'all, today we have a first-time guest, very cool, Mark Schofield, he's from the Touchdown Wire, which is underneath the USA Today, writes constantly, a lot of breaking. He's catching it first. Mark, am I misstating anything there?
No, you're not, Matt, and it's great to be here. Yeah, I mean, I've got the Twitter notification set up for Schefter and Rappaport, and as soon as something happens, it's like, all right, well, got to write about this. And so, it's a fun time of year where we're doing this on Monday night. We get roster cut downs tomorrow. On Tuesday, every team getting down to 53. So it's a fun time of year, but I'm excited to be here and talk a little ball with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So somebody who we obviously don't have to worry about making any 53 or, is Tom Brady. And yesterday, I think it was Sunday or over the weekend, Tom Brady did a press conference where it seemed, I think there were two tracks of what people were talking about. One, obviously, we're in the social media age where a lot of stuff is just plain silly and kind of ridiculous. But there were folks who were talking about kind of his affect, and then folks who were talking about, his construction of his face. Do you think either of those conversations will have any impact on how the Buccaneers do, or is it, and from the football perspective, much to do about nothing?
I mean, I think, Matt, from the football perspective, it's much ado about nothing. But Tom Brady has become a fascinated figure over, say, the past couple of years for a number of different reasons. I mean, I'm a Patriots fan first and foremost. I mean, I grew up in the Boston area. You can hear the Boston accent. I have yet to get rid of it despite moving out of the New England area, Matt, like 20 years ago. I still have it. Ever since he left New England and joined the Buccaneers, he's kind of come out of his shell a bit.
Yeah.
Under Belichick, it's very much tight-lipped. You don't want to disrupt anything. You don't want to tip the apple cart. Now he's his social media team is incredible. He's constantly out there making fun of himself, making fun of other people. And like I said, he's really sort of come out of his shell. So he's become this sort of fascinating figure. But when you weave into that a couple of different things, one, the sort of still yet to be explained absence where he steps away for 11 days, and there are theories about like the masked sinner or vacations. And like you mentioned, wow, those cheekbones look pretty prominent. Did he get the work done? And people have looked at Tom Brady's facial evolution over the past 20 years and made the case that perhaps he has had some work done. And hey, good perhaps for him. He's become this fascinating figure, sort of debated to talk about, because we're in rarefied territory now. He's 45 years old. He's still playing at an extremely high level. So he's a lot of fun to talk about. But ultimately, I think this is much ado about nothing. I mean, what matters for Tom Brady is what's he going to look like week one? What's he going to look like on the field? And if he looks anything, Matt, like the guy we saw last year, he's going to be one of the best players in the game. The NFL 100 was just released. The players voted him the best player in the game. Now, a lot of that is guys getting the ballot and saying, what quarterbacks do I know? And they fill it out that way. So, I mean, there's some selection bias there, but he's still playing at a very high level, and I don't see any reason why that won't continue.
So when the pads go on and you expect to see the top 22, offense, defense, how well do you think the Bucs will play this year?
I mean, I think they're still going to be in the mix. I mean, look, the NFC is pretty wide open. I mean, you look around the NFC landscape. I know we're going to talk about who we think the best teams in the NFC are, but like you expect Tampa Bay to still be in there. You expect Green Bay, the Rams. I really like what Philly's done this offseason. There's not a lot of teams. It's not like the AFC where you can make the case that like 10, 12 teams might be the AFC champion when we're all said and done. NFC just kind of looks wide open. And Brady, Rodgers, Stafford, the Eagles, like those are the teams that you're looking at right now in the NFC. Now, I think there are teams that are going to give them some trouble in the South, but I still think when we get to January, there's certainly going to be, a team that's in the playoffs or making a playoff push, and somebody that you might look at. Are they the top seed in the NFC? Are they 1, 2, 3, 4? I expect them to win that division and, them to make another run with Brady.
Do you see Jimmy G staying with the Niners? I would include it. You pretty much got to, one of the things I wanted to talk about, the power of the NFC. I think you named 4 teams who I think consensus should be in people's conversation. What are your thoughts on the Niners? Especially because now, as you've written recently,
we're doing this Monday night, and we just got the news Jimmy G did a 1-year restructure to stay in San Francisco. People have already started to say that this is going to be a problem, that The first time they go 3-and-out, they're going to start calling for Garoppolo instead of Trey Lance. The first time they lose a game, it's going to be, we should start Jimmy next week. First question Shanahan will get at a press conference right after that. Are you going to start Jimmy G next week? I mean, I don't think there's really too much to that. I really do believe that Kyle Shanahan has made the decision that this is Trey Lance's team. There is no market for Jimmy Garoppolo. Since March, Matt, they've been trying to move him. There's just no market for him because you know what Jimmy Garoppolo is. Yeah. He's a guy that he's a league average quarterback that if everything is right around him can get you to the playoffs, but he's not going to win you a playoff game on his own. We've seen that time and time again. And so I think the league there wasn't a market for him. And by bringing him back, they could still trade him before the trade deadline in October. If we get to week 2 and suddenly a team starting quarterback goes down, at that point, there might be a market for Jimmy Garoppolo. And so this gives the 49ers the flexibility to do that. Obviously, for San Francisco, the talent is there on both sides of the ball. It's just, what are you going to get from Trey Lance? Is Trey Lance going to be the guy that they thought he was when they drafted him a 3rd overall? Or is it going to take some time for him to figure it out? I'm a believer in Trey Lance. I think that offensive system that he's in is almost mirror image of what he was running at North Dakota State. So I think it's a very good environment for him. They've got weapons with Debo, with Kittle, with Ayuk, with some of the other guys, even Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback that they love to involve out of the backfield. And so the talent's there on both sides of the ball. It just really comes down to, does Trey Lance do what Trey Lance needs to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think as a backup quarterback, I think he's really top of the line. If you're talking about 30, what's that, 33 to 64? I mean, he's fantastic. I think my personal favorite team is the Eagles, of course. And I think I would take him over Minshew, but that's the conversation you're having there.
Right. You're not. And the advantage of having Garoppolo back is you don't need to worry about him getting reps during the week. He knows this offense. He knows it cold. You don't have to waste practice time getting the backup ready just in case. I mean, there's that old Ted Marchibroda story when he was the offensive coordinator with the Indianapolis Colts when Peyton Manning was there, and somebody in the media was observing practice, and they saw that the backup, Jim Sorgi, wasn't getting any snaps, and Marchibroda was like, look, Manning goes down, we're bleeped, man, and we don't practice bleeped. There's no point to it. You don't want to waste time getting your backup ready just in case. You won't have to do that if you're Shanahan. Lance can still get the bulk of the snaps and practices. They can get him ready. And if something does happen to Lance, Garoppolo walks onto the field and he knows the offense inside and out.
You've got the ultimate confidence if that situation were to arise. That the guy has gotten you to Super Bowls, multiple NFC championship games. I mean, you really couldn't ask for a better backup quarterback situation. Now,
it's almost ideal
because you get to give your who you hope to be your franchise quarterback all of the leeway possible. He has to really stink it up for you then to go to Jimmy G.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I don't think Lance will, but that's a nice little club to have in the bag, right? If you're Shanahan, you've got a guy that can do X, Y, and Z in your offense, that knows your offense cold. You don't have to worry about him if you need him. He's there.
And that, I feel like that it puts a little pressure on Lance, but if he's who they hoped him to be, it'll push him. And I have a legitimate there's a lot of quarterbacks who, like you brought up Sorgi just now. I mean, there's no threat whatsoever that anybody's even watching Sorgi throw.
Exactly. If Trey Lance is the quarterback that the Niners believe he is, that people believe he is, it's not going to bother him. He's going to go out there and do his job. And if something happens, they get Garoppolo. If an injury happens, they get Garoppolo. I think it's a pretty good situation for all parties, I think.
So we just talked about 4 or 5, however you want to shake it out. Who, if you had to get pinned down on 3, who are your 3 out of the NFC?
I think it's Green Bay, Tampa Bay, and the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, those 3 teams look the best to me. Green Bay, the biggest question right now, Matt, is are they going to get enough around Rodgers on the offensive side of it? Yeah, we know Devontae Adams now in Las Vegas with the Raiders. They're excited about Romeo Doubs. They're excited about Christian Watson, who's been hurt, hasn't really practiced yet. They've got some rookie talented receivers. they're really excited about the running backs, Dillon and Jones, what they can do out of the backfield. Matt LaFleur loves to get the backs involved. But really what might get Green Bay there is their defense. Their defense looks to be on
Oh
paper
yeah.
fantastic. And,
Oh yeah.
Is this the day and age in the NFL where you can win 17-14 rock fights? No, but if you can hold a team to 20 and you've got Aaron Rodgers, you're going to be in pretty good shape. And so, we talked about Tampa, we talked about Green Bay, and I'm kind of old school. Like if you win a Super Bowl, like you're kind of in the mix until you're not, right?
Yep.
Like I know there are questions about the Rams, there are questions about Stafford's elbow, but until I see them start losing games, you got to keep them in the mix. I mean, that next tier of teams is very interesting. Arizona, San Francisco, Philadelphia, with all the additions they've made. Like I think there's going to be a team out of that tier that is going to make some noise. New Orleans is another one, but those are the three right now. If I'm getting pinned down on it, those are the three.
And so you brought up New Orleans. That's an interesting team name that I've heard brought up in this conversation. Who do you think? If I tell you that the Buccaneers really struggle with a team to lock down the NFC South, who's that team?
It's New Orleans. And it's mostly because Dennis Allen and that New Orleans Saints defense seems to be Brady's kryptonite. Like, when he was in New England, Miami and Denver, playing at Denver, like those were his weaknesses that for whatever reason, they could be like, 14-1 going into the last game of the season and Brady and the Patriots would lay an egg in Miami. It just would happen. Right now, it seems to be the Saints. Like Dennis Allen, that defense seems to just bring the worst out of Brady. He had, a game that ended on a pick six early in the season on Halloween night. And then that absolute debacle in their second meeting, right around Christmas time, where not that anybody cares about one of my fantasy teams, but I was in very good shape in the Scott Fish Bowl, like one of the biggest fantasy leagues in the world, like 4,000 people in it. I had a bye. I had Brady and Justin Herbert as my quarterbacks. It's a super flex league. I was sitting pretty. And then that game happens, my first playoff game, and I get one and done in the playoffs, Matt. Like, I'm still bitter over it. Believe me. Yeah,
I hear it.
you hear it. I mean, Brady just seems to struggle right now against New Orleans. And so if we're doing the show next summer and we're like doing sort of a post-mortem on what happened and you're in a team and they did not win the division, my guess would be looking back, it was New Orleans. They must have done something to figure him out yet again.
So how many, just as a side note, how many fantasy football leagues are too many, Mark? I'm
down to 2. I mean, I used to have like 5 or 6 depending on the year. I just don't have time anymore, man. Like there was one year where I was getting pings like Friday morning, like you forgot to set your lineup. What are you doing? I'm like, look, you know what? I can't keep up with it anymore. What about you? Because I think 2 is enough.
I think 2 is enough. I've done as many, and this is no lie, I've done as many as 8 at a time.
Wow, man.
Yeah. And then at that point, you kind of feel like every player in the league. I feel comfortable. I feel good about 3-4. 3-4 is kind of like the sweet spot.
Yeah. I mean, this is my first year with just 2, and I'm kind of looking forward to it being a little bit quieter. And I mean, we'll see. Maybe I'll get the itch around mid-season and I'll start looking for some new leagues that need people. I mean, that wouldn't surprise me, but there's a part of me that's like 2 should be good for me.
So I started doing the year I did too many was because the year before, like I was practicing, I was doing like the mocks and I hit the mocks out of the park. I'm like, you know what? I'm not picking just just to lose it and then play with some bums. And then I'll inevitably, in those seasons where I have too many, I'll inevitably set myself up for one and then miss it. Like nobody said the group text or something like that.
Yeah. And then you get the auto draft kicker in the 4th round and you're like, this is going to be a fun year.
And I like to stay and fight and try to like screw it up the good team.
You feel like you got to make the most of it at that point, but still that auto drafted kicker in the 5th is a tough thing to overcome.
Oh my gosh. So you brought up Miami earlier, who was Tom Brady's kryptonite back in New England. Do you think that the Dolphins make any noise? And do you think that Tyreek Hill balls out, or did he just go there for the money? I guess that was a bit of a loaded question.
Yeah, no, I think they can make noise. but it's a very similar conversation to Philadelphia, right? Like the talent's there on both sides of the ball. They've brought in weapons. They've done everything they can for the young quarterback. Now it's up to Tua. Can Tua deliver? And talk about polarizing players right now. Like Tua starts the game the other night with a deep shot to Tyreek, and it's a little bit underthrown. And it's been 4 days of coverage, it seems like, at this point. Was that underthrown? Was that actually a good throw? Is Tua a bust? Was that evidence that he's going to have a great year? I think from what we've seen, interestingly enough, from Skylar Thompson, their 7th round pick out of Kansas State, rookie quarterback, he's played lights out this offseason. That tells me a couple things. One, Skylar Thompson is going to make the NFL this season. He's going to stick on the 53. But two, Mike McDaniel is going to be a good influence for Tua, because if he can get Skylar Thompson playing at that level, he's going to get Tua playing to where he is. So I think Miami is going to be in the mix. I think it's going to be one of those situations where, like I said, you've got 8, 10, 12 teams in the AFC. They're going to be fighting it out for those 7 playoff spots. Miami's going to be one of those 7. I think it's going to be hard for them to win the division. Buffalo looks so good. But if you're telling me that a couple of weeks from now, it's going to be Buffalo, Miami, New England, and the Jets in that order, I can see it, especially with how New England has struggled this preseason.
On the other side of that trade, how are you feeling about where that leaves the Chiefs, and who do you think will try to at least step up into that role?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited, Matt, about Sky Moore, the rookie wide receiver out of Western Michigan. They've done a lot of different things with him so far this offseason, using him in the slot. At Western Michigan, even though he's like a prototypical kind of slot type guy, they were using him on the outside. He's got a very good release package against press aligned defenders. They've been using him out of the backfield. I think that offense is obviously going to be different. You don't have that sort of Tyreek element, a guy that can beat you over the top, 75 yards over the top, or can take a slant to the house. Like, they don't have that. But I think they've got some nice pieces. It's going to have to come down to, can Mahomes stay patient, right? Because that was an issue for him last year, early in the year with the 2 high safety stuff. Like, he was trying to force things, wasn't staying patient. In the AFC Championship game, when Cincinnati came out, did all that drop 8 stuff, he wouldn't stay patient. He was starting to force things. Now the offense is built for those 10, 11, 12 play drives, right? A little more ball control with MVS, with Juju Smith-Schuster, like a little bit more, work the ball down the field, 10, 12, 15 play drives, maybe an explosive play here or two with Kelsey or with Sky Moore. But can Mahomes stay patient throughout the regular season? If he can, they're going to be fine. Like, it's still Reed, it's still Mahomes, it's still Kelsey. Like, they have still a lot of weapons, but that's the big question facing them.
Do you think they do? And do you think that it's enough to win the AFC West?
Man, Matt, I mean, whoever wins the West is one of your Super Bowl favorites once, that regular season is over, right? Because you can make a case right now, all 4 of those teams could win. And what do we do in the media every summer? Oh, this is the Chargers year, right? This is the Chargers year. I remember doing that with LDT and Phillip Rivers and Antonio Gates back in the day. Like, oh, yeah, this is going to be the year.
Yeah.
They look loaded right now. They look absolutely loaded. Khalil Mack, J.C. Jackson, I know we just got hurt, but he'll be back pretty soon.
Yeah.
Keenan Allen is still one of the best receivers in the game, one of the best route runners in the game.
Still.
Mike Williams is so good. Like, and obviously Justin Herbert, what he can do. Like, that should be a very good team. The Raiders are a very good team now with Devontae Adams. I mean, the Broncos are a very good team. You got 4 of the top 12 quarterbacks in the league in that division. It's going to be tough. Whoever comes out of that division is, next to Buffalo, I think one of your 2 Super Bowl favorites out of the AFC. I think the Chiefs have enough to overcome everybody, but man, that's a tough division to call.
Do you think in year 1, the addition of Russell Wilson is enough to really seriously put them in that conversation, or are they they'll need to build towards winning this division?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Raiders and the Broncos, I think, that's like the Chiefs and the Chargers are your tier 1. The Raiders and the Broncos are your tier 2 in that division. And what's interesting about those 2 teams, the Raiders and the Broncos, the Raiders have questions about their secondary. Like, can they cover anybody? Like, Crosby and Jones up front, like, they're going to pressure people.
Right.
But can they cover? When you look at Denver, it's like they can cover, right? Patrick Surtain's fantastic. The safety, Simmons, is fantastic. what are they going to get pressure from? Like, if you could mesh their two defenses together, you have the best defense in the West, but you can't do that. And so those two teams might be a year away from adding some pieces on the defensive side of the ball, whether it's up front or in the secondary, from really being threats in the West. I think this year it's really more about the Chargers and the Chiefs.
Do you think that the Bengals kind of don't have that Super Bowl hangover of the team that loses it kind of fades, or will they be back?
They can be back. Obviously, they did a great job sort of rebuilding that offensive line, right? You add in Kappa, you add in Leo Collins at the right tackle spot. Like, that offensive line was an issue, 9 sacks in a divisional round game. Like, you can't win games consistently that way. So I think there's an opportunity for them to avoid that sort of Super Bowl loser hangover that you alluded to, because we've seen it so often. Teams struggle to get back. How does Burrow do after this sort of layoff of the appendicitis and the appendectomy? Like, he's missed some time. Is he a little rusty? That remains to be seen. Obviously, Jamar Chase, one of the elites already at the position. T. Higgins on the outside, cusp of elite at the wide receiver position. With the additions up front, they should be a very good team. It's just, I don't know if you're going to get the same injuries in Baltimore, right? Like, I don't know if Baltimore is going to have the sort of same season they did last year.
Right.
I really like Baltimore coming out of the North.
Me
I
too.
think Cincinnati and Baltimore are the two teams there, but I think Baltimore is going to be healthier. I think Baltimore's made some great additions.
Great call.
You can get Lamar Jackson playing for a big deal. Like, I think that's going to go well. I love the tight end, Isaiah Likely, out of Coastal Carolina. They do so much, Matt, with 2 tight end looks. You get in Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, all this worry about who's going to throw to downfield. What are they going to have for receivers? You might have 2 really good tight ends, including one of the best tight ends in the game, at Mark Andrews. And so I think Cincinnati is going to be good. I think they're going to be in the mix, but I kind of like Baltimore out of the North.
Yeah, I think J.K. Dobbins will finally put it all together this year. I think he'll have that Pro Bowl type year.
I think you're exactly right there.
Yeah. So if I'm going to pin you down on 3 in the AFC, where are you going there?
Yeah, for me, it's Buffalo, it's Baltimore, and it's whoever wins the West. I'm going to say it's the Chiefs, but if it's the Chargers, it's the Broncos, Raiders, whatever. It's Buffalo, Baltimore, and whoever wins the West. I think that will be Kansas City, but whoever wins the West is going to be ready to go come playoff time.
Whoever wins the West, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's such a talented division. And Matt, all of those games are going to be like must watch. Like I said, you've got 4 of the top 12 quarterbacks in the game in the same division. Like, I can't remember anything like it.
And I brought this up to someone. You could have 4 playoff teams from that division.
You could
with the new rules.
With the new rules, you could. You get 4 playoff teams. Everybody else just gets 1. It wouldn't be
It's realistic. If you're like a sports betting person, you probably get pretty good odds on that, and the odds are better than they could have ever been in NFL history.
And whoever wins that division is probably going to be like 10-7, 9-8. Like, they're going to beat each other up, which is why I keep saying, like, whoever wins that is going to be battle tested, ready to go. Like, they will have earned that home playoff game, whoever wins the West.
So since I talked about Super Bowl hangover, some of that I have to say the Bills and the Chiefs. Of course, the Bills didn't make it, but the way that game ended, that felt like everybody watching it felt like this. I wish this was the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, the stories wrote themselves after that game ended. 13 seconds away and things like that. I mean, I know a lot of Buffalo fans. I do a lot of shows up in Buffalo, and they've been pointing to the season now for a while. Like, this is their year. Like, every Buffalo show, they're looking 15-2, 16-1. Like, they really feel it. Like, look, and they have a fairly easy schedule because of, the way it sets up for them. And so I think they're in very good shape. You have Josh Allen, who's one of the game's best quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I love the additions on the defensive side of the ball. You have the best safety tandem in the league, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer. You add Von Miller. That's going to free up Greg Rousseau for some one-on-ones. Tre'Davious White's back and healthy. Kaiir Elam, first-round corner across from him. Teron Johnson, a great slot corner. And they got talent at linebacker as well with Edmonds and Milano. Like, there's talent all over this roster, man. They're the odds-on favorite for the Super Bowl for a reason. Like, now, of course, they got to go out there and do it. Will they have some sort of layover? Will they fail to live up to those expectations? Will they crack under the pressure? I don't think so. I mean, this is a team that's been to the playoffs for a couple times now. Like AFC Championship game 2 years ago, divisional round game with everybody, like you said, which was the Super Bowl, let alone the AFC Championship game last year. Like, I think they've been through enough to know, all right, these are the expectations, Super Bowl or bust, and we're going to live up to them.
So getting back to the conversation about 53-man rosters, who are some of the people you've seen released already who are quite intriguing? Who do you expect could be in that mix, I guess, for your team or a really good fit with another team?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Sony Michel getting released by the Dolphins. That was kind of a numbers game there. I mean, we're a couple of years removed from him being like one of the focal players down the stretch for the Patriots in 18.
Oh, yeah.
Like they became a ball control, run first team, and he was the reason scored the only touchdown at Super Bowl 53. Like, I think there are going to be some teams. Like, for example, if the Vikings do trade Mattison, they fielded like 12 calls, 12 teams are reportedly like in for, perhaps trading for him. Maybe there's a market for him in Minnesota. Buffalo, I know they just drafted, another running back. Like, that seems to be the question mark about the Bills, right? Like, can they get a running game going? Maybe that's an environment for him. Speaking of a spot in Buffalo, Brett Kern, the punter that was just released by Tennessee, like the Bills just cut their rookie punter because of, that situation, the civil lawsuit. There's a window there for, Brett Kern to find a home in Buffalo. We're doing this Monday night. Tuesday is going to be the big cut down day with Garoppolo coming back to San Francisco. You might get Nate Sudfeld and Brock Purdy available, because those were the other quarterbacks in the mix. Maybe there's a team that's interested in one of those guys. Other Skylar Thompson, I mentioned him. If for whatever reason he does not make the Dolphins roster, there will be teams that are interested. We saw Tim Boyle was just cut by the Lions. Denver's a team to watch for a backup quarterback, like that backup spot. Little shaky. Josh Johnson, Brett Rippon. I was a huge Brett Rippon guy when he was coming out of Boise State, but it hasn't quite clicked yet. I'm sure they'd love to get a backup in the mix there. Seattle's still a team. Yes, Geno Smith won the job. They've got Drew Lock, but it wouldn't surprise me if they had a quarterback around the way, next couple of days. And so there will be some names that will be available, but Sony Michel right now is the one that sort of jumped out to me.
And what kind of deal would you, if you had to, spitball what the kind of numbers that Sony Michel is looking for per on a per year basis? We're talking 3-4 mil or 2 mil.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a low dollar, high incentive kind of deal. I mean, if I'm a general manager, it's going to be very incentive based, like, low base salary, somewhere around the 1 million range, but with incentives and playing time incentives and carry incentives where you could get it to a $3 or $4 billion range if he hits them. And they'd be, incentives likely to be, hit, not like unlikely to be, because they can sort of tinker with it that way. But I think that's the kind of deal I'd look at.
For my Eagles listeners, what do you think? Do you think that that on the Mattison deal, one, are the Eagles one of the 12 teams that called about Mattison? And two, what do you think that anyone in the league would bite on a Jalen Reagor trade for anything, including it with the cheesesteak?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't surprise me. Look, Howie Roseman is always exploring avenues. Let's put it that way. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if he made a call about Mattison. Look, you've got Sanders, you've got Gainwell, you've got Brooks. Kennedy Brooks, who I really liked, and I know some people really like coming out of Oklahoma. As an undrafted free agent, a lot of people really like their UDFA class. But any chance you get to sort of add talent, Howie Roseman's going to at least pick up the phone. And so I'm sure he inquired, would a team trade for Reagor? I think it'd be more like Reagor might be the part of a deal. I'm not sure the teams are actively calling mad Howie Roseman to say, hey, what's it going to take to pry Jalen Reagor off your hands? Like, I think it'd be more like, he'll be part of a deal. Like if they go get Mattison, it might be a pick and Reagor kind of situation where, he could add depth at that Vikings receiver room, something like that. But I don't think general managers, maybe New England, they've got some weaknesses in the wide receiver room. But outside of that, maybe even Chicago. Outside of that, I don't see too many teams picking up the phone to see what it's going to cost for Jalen Reagor.
Thank you. I just been trying to set expectations for folks because people who are fans of the team.
The curse of like draft capital, right? Like when you draft a player, when you draft a player like that, a wide receiver in the first round, you expect you're going to get a first round return. Like Jalen Reagor has played better than N'Keal Harry. Okay, I will say that easy. N'Keal Harry is a first round pick, and what did the Patriots
We
get?
could swap those. I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean you're not going to get a first round pick in return at this point. Like,
no,
if a team's offering you a fourth for Jalen Reagor, like you take it.
You got to take it. Yeah. You got to take it. But I don't even think I went on the record February after the season was over, even for a 6th or a 7th. I don't see anybody, and I think that they would take it because he's on the bubble. As much as I think he ends up making the Eagles roster, I think that's just based on the draft capital that was used to get him.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, like you've had some guys like Kane has sort of established himself. Like I like what I've seen from him. Heck, even Devon Allen, the hurdler, like he could be your special teams gunner, contribute on special teams in the kick return game, and you could have a package of like 10 plays where it's like you might run them once or twice a game. And you might have a shot at an explosive play. Like that might be worth the roster spot that would free up. That would be freed up if you're not putting Reagor on the roster.
Yeah, well, thank you. I've just been trying to fact check for some of my more optimistic, and that's how I say it, optimistic.
August is the season, is the month of optimism. All 32 fan bases right now believe this is their year, so I get it. But I just don't think the market is there for Jalen Reagor.
No, it's not because it's not, Mark. Because you cover the game so who's your dark horse? Who's your favorite dark horse playoff team?
Man, I mean, Carolina is kind of creeping into my mind more and more.
Okay,
and partly because the NFC is kind of open, partly because you could see a path where Baker kind of clicks well enough. He's healthy. You know, the NFC is kind of wide open. And so, you know, I'm intrigued by the idea of Carolina. I might just be kind of talking myself into it as I have been the past couple of days. I don't know about a playoff team, but I think when we get to like the holiday season and we turn on the games on Sunday and you've got the playoff graphic and you've got the teams in the hunt at the bottom,
yep.
I think we're going to be in the playoffs season, the holiday season. We're going to see that graphic. And at the bottom, maybe the last team of the teams in the hunt are going to be the Detroit Lions.
Ooh.
And I know that sounds absurd, you know, and this is not a Hard Knocks thing. Like it's not because of that. Last year, Matt, that team played so hard for Dan.
They did.
So the Baltimore game where Tucker hits a 66-yard field goal off the crossbar and in to win on the final play.
Yep.
Like, you know, it's a cliche what every head coach after a game says, oh, yo, we're lucky, man. That team on the other side of the field gave us everything they had.
They really did.
They really did. That's exactly right. Every team that beat the Lions last year felt like the Lions gave it everything. And
the only exception was my team. It was the only time that the Lions got blown out. They did get blown out pretty good. If you're listening, you're an Eagles fan. Yeah. There were other 16 games. For the most
part, they played hard. They fought and they could have packed it in, but they got some wins down the stretch. They had Hutchinson. They're going to get Williams back at some point. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of my favorite receivers coming out of that draft cycle. You know, Jeff Okudah just won a starting job. That's great to see because he had struggled since his injury last year and struggled as a rookie. I think this team's going to be sneaky good. Like, do I think they win the division? No. Do I think they ultimately get to the playoffs? Probably not. But the NFC is open. I think when we get to Thanksgiving, Christmas time, and all the holidays, and we see those teams in the hunt, Lions are going to be on that list.
Well, they'll be like 6-9. What do you?
They'll be like 6-9. But like if they win out and get a little bit of help, and if you're a Lions fan and you're being told like, hey, you know, around the holidays and the final week of the season, like you're still going to be relevant. It's not going to be, oh, I wonder when we're picking in the draft. It's going to be, hey, it's a long shot, but if we win our last 2 games and 6 different scenarios happen, we can get in. I think if you told a Lions fan that was going to be your season, they'd take it right now in a heartbeat.
You got to take it. Mean, they're one of the less fortunate franchises in the last couple decades here.
Yeah, and maybe they finally win a Thanksgiving Day game. You know,
gosh, they've had a lot of chances. I don't. It's like flip of the. Who do they play for this year's?
I'm pulling it up right now. Oh no, they're not going to win one this year. They get Buffalo.
Oh no, running into
so
a
they're not going to get one
chainsaw.
this year. No.
What if? But let's see. Lions, play hard for Dan Campbell. We'll see. We'll see. Mark, thank you so much for coming on. It's a lot of fun, and obviously, I knew that you would be the right person to talk to on Cut Down Day. We're right on Cut Down. I guess this is Cut Down Day Eve.
Yeah.
Who do you? Last question I got here. Who do you hope that your Patriots might try to pick up, or what position do you think they
receiver? I mean, receiver is an issue. Like, they're excited about Tyquan Thornton, the rookie that they drafted out of Baylor, but he had the fractured collarbone, so he's out for about 8 weeks is the estimate.
Ooh.
Watching that offense right now, they're struggling to get consistent separation. There are a lot of issues about this offense right now, Matt, where it's been very inconsistent. I'd like them to add somebody that could separate. Look, Will Fuller is still out there. Like,
yeah,
he's not going to give you
all 4 games of him.
Yeah, I mean, if you sign Will Fuller, it's look, you're going to run 7 go routes every week. Can you give me that? And maybe he can't, but they need some help with the wide receiver room for sure.
So maybe Rager's headed to New England.
Like I said, look, Chicago and New England might be the only 2 teams that might be calling about Jalen Rager. Let's put it that way.
You gotta love it, Mark. Tell the people what you got going on and where we can follow along for all the latest tomorrow on, or if you're listening, it's Tuesday. It's today on Cut Down.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for having me, man. This was a blast. You can follow me on Twitter at Mark Schofield. USA Today's Touchdown Wire. Tuesdays, QB Factory Reboot Day, where Rachel Prevet and I sit down and record our Eagles show. But you can follow all the good stuff at Mark Schofield on Twitter.
Thank you, man. Take care.
You too, Matt. Thank you so much.
All right.